Hello everyone, welcome to this episode of Beyond the Barclay with me, Jez Davies, joined with my illustrious co-host Morgan.
Hello.
Morgan. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, good, thank you very much. And today we are joined we're very lucky to be joined with Ronnie Moulton. Hi Ronnie, how are you?
Hi Jez, I'm good. Thanks for inviting me. We're fine here in very dull and cloudy Fakenham.
Fakenham, yeah. Fakenham's a wonderful place. If people don't know, in West Norfolk, I've been through several times. Do you know what? Having sort of grew up in Norfolk, I now live outside of the county in Hertfordshire. I haven't been to Fakenham a lot, so perhaps you can give a bit of an insight into Fakenham as a place.
Fakenham, yeah, small market town, basically probably population about 6,000-7,000. Was the main hub basically years ago of printing industry, which sadly left us. And like many small towns, it's quite different. Lots going on if you want to get involved. And well known for the race course, of course, Fakenham race course, and got a good cricket club and good football club.
And a good fish and chip shop.
Yeah, several good fish and chip shops.
Yeah. I love the fish and chips in Fakenham. I used to have a dentist in Fakenham, you see, Ronnie. My mum still goes to the same dentist. She refuses to go anywhere else. So she lives in Durham but commutes to Fakenham for a dental treatment.
Yeah, that's another sort of subject, really, getting the dental appointment in and around this area. But yeah, we've got a dentist in the town down Bridge Street, so they're very good to us as well. Yeah, brilliant.
Fantastic. I mean, I think the fish and chips episode will be one to behold, because I've got my own views on the best fish and chip shop in Norfolk, and it's in the wonderful town of Cromer.
I don't know about that. I used to work in a fish and chip shop as my first ever job. So 2 years in Big Fry in Durham.
Big Fry. There we are. And,
I think the people down the road at Wells will probably have something to say to you as well.
Yes, I love the Wells fish and chips.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. So, there is that sort of conversation around which one's even the best one in Cromer now, because obviously number one seems to have taken a bit of a rise to fame, shall we say, with the chef who is a Norwich fan, whose name escapes me. He owns that, doesn't he?
Get him on.
Yeah, exactly.
We can have this fish and chips debate.
Yeah, I think let's schedule that for later in the season, Morgan. We'll have a fish and chips special. So I suppose without further ado, let's get back on subject and talk about what we all love, Norwich City. And Ronnie, I think it's fair to say you've had a rich and varied past supporting the club. I think if we jump into the questions, we'll perhaps sort of understand that a little bit more. So Morgan, if you'd like to be so good as to ask the first question, please.
Yeah, of course. So Ronnie, your first game was an emphatic 6-0 win over Stoke in 1963. What do you remember most about that day?
Oh, well, yeah, 7-year-old boy taken up to Carrow Road with your dad, carrying a wooden stool to stand on in the River End, armed with in those days a tube of munchies. First thing was to buy a programme, which in those days, which obviously I still got, was sixpence. And we stood underneath the scoreboard in the River End, and Dad always put us in front of a barrier so we didn't get pushed or crushed.
Yeah.
And that was my first standing there. And we got there nice and early, 3:00 kickoff. Got there at 1:00, and stood there for ages. And obviously not much entertainment. Only in those days the blue invalid carriages going around the edge of the pitch. Getting in a prime position, because they were right nearly, I don't know how they did it, but right on the edge just behind the lines of the pitch. And and obviously being excited because Sir Stanley Matthews was playing.
Yeah. I mean, if you just want to explain who Sir Stanley Matthews is to our younger listeners.
Sir Stanley Matthews was probably one of the greatest wingers in the 50s. He went on to play till he was 50. When he played at Norwich, he was actually 48.
Wow.
He obviously is well known for playing for the Blackpool FA Cup final, playing for England. And yeah, I mean, that forward line that day were the three M's. It was Moody, Matthews, and McIlroy.
Mm.
And they were flying. They were top of the league, and along come Norwich again. Even going back to 1963 and Norwich that day, they actually had three changes in the side. So, you know, when you go back and look back at it, you think to yourself, how did they beat Stoke 6-0?
Yeah.
And one of the guys who was actual replacement, Jim Oliver, he scored a hat trick.
Oh wow!
Amazing. What time of the year was it? Do you remember?
It was March. It was 9th of March 1963.
Okay, because it's still a bit cold.
Well, it was 1963. It's one of the hardest winters that we've ever known in our country.
Right.
And for the people the Norwich actually should have played Blackpool in the FA Cup, and that game was postponed 11 times.
It wouldn't happen today, would it?
11 times, and when they did actually play the game, guess what happened? They drew.
Another game.
And they had to have another game. So, and what I can remember from standing there, the other thing was that pitch that day was just a sand pit.
Mm.
It was covered in sand, and you know, in those days, when you think about today's bench and how the managers and all the trainers sit in these plush chairs, they were on a bench. They were sitting on a wooden bench. The manager and the trainer in those days, I mean, the trainer basically, he was the man with a galvanised bucket and a sponge.
Wow. Yeah, I bet they were good days to go and watch football. And sort of in terms of attendances back then, what would Norwich pull in terms of particularly for those bigger games? What would
the
they pull?
gate that day was ingrained on my brain. It was 25,707.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah. So pretty similar to today.
And the thing I can remember from that game is when we walked down the out of the ground, a little lad, 7-year-old. I can remember actually my feet not touching the ground till we turned out of the ground and we went round and walked down by the side of the old Bolton and Paul yard down by Riverside Road.
Yep. Which is where now obviously the Riverside complex is, right?
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it's not a bad first game to attend, is it?
You know, that's a game that, well, yeah, I mean, when I talk, people say, what's your first game? You say, yeah, 1-6-0. I think, what? We're 1-6-0? Yeah. And I think the amazing thing was Jim Oliver, who scored a hat-trick, Norwich played Newcastle in the FA Cup on the following Wednesday night when they won 5-0, and Jim Oliver was dropped.
Oh. That's incredible to think that, isn't it? You know, he scored a hat trick and then in the following game he's not even included.
The other thing about that game against Stoke was Terry Alcock scored his 100th club goal.
Amazing.
And he's correct me if I'm wrong, Ronnie, but he's scored the most goals for Norwich still.
Yeah, Johnny Gavin just beat him.
Right. Yeah.
But, Terry Alcock is second place, I believe.
Right. Fair enough. Okay, well, moving on then. So you mentioned in your chat that your dad was involved with clearing the snow during the famous 1959 FA Cup run. How much did that moment mean to? Also, should I say how did that run? What did that run mean to your family?
That run meant so much to my family, but it just not my family. It meant so much to the whole population of Norfolk, and I'll probably talk to you as we go on into this interview, what it means, and I still talk about it every week in what I do with Duncan's club, but with my dad, it was so special. He talked about it all the time, and he went to some matches, and obviously he helped to clear the snow off for the Man United game.
Yep.
And got in to see the game. But when it came down to the last, it was so disappointing because they couldn't get tickets and couldn't get time off work to go to the semi-final when they got knocked out against Luton.
Yeah.
But the story there is a story here if you want one. For Dad will always tell me that Dad was a bricklayer, And at the time, the BBC did record. They did actually bring that match live. Originally it was on the home service, but BBC decided for that game, because of the popularity, they would actually try and get that game live. So there was Dad on a building site with all his mates. So they decided to get an old radio, but they couldn't hear the damn game. So they decided to put it on top of a scaffold
Right.
and get a coat hanger and try to invent an aerial to get a signal. But they did.
Got it. Oh,
But
wow.
sadly, they lost the game, and Billy Bingham's name was very popular on that building site.
No, I can imagine. I mean, talking about that game in particular then, so with it being the semi-final, well, they still, I mean, this is so long before the time that I started following the club, but was that at a neutral ground?
Yeah. They played the actual. They played the actual game at St Andrews.
Right.
Oh, well, okay.
Yeah, they played Billy Bingham was the man who did the danger.
Yeah.
And scored the goal, because we played because it was as you know, it was a replay.
Yeah.
The first one was actually played at Tottenham.
Right.
That was played on the 14th on the Saturday, and on the 18th, the next game was played at St Andrews, Birmingham.
Right. I mean, it must be interesting. It'd be interesting for me to sort of know how that process of picking the stadiums took place. Would it, obviously the game took place at what I assume White Hart Lane, if it was Tottenham. Then the game was drawn. How would you know how the process was of then going, right, well, we're going to have a replay here. Right, we'll just pick St Andrews. I mean, how did they come to that?
Well, I think they used the major grounds in the. I don't think there was a process. It's just that the major grounds and probably availability at the time. I mean, Villa Park was another one, So the larger grounds. And I suppose in those days you had to think about transport. So if you're in the north of England, it would have probably been Roker Park or Ayresome Park.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
But probably no system, but availability probably.
Yeah, and the distance to travel for the teams, because
Absolutely.
You know as well as anyone that Norwich is kind of out on a bit of a limb, isn't it? So
of course it is.
It's challenging for fans of Newcastle and Plymouth to come all the way to Norwich, and I think the away support for those clubs that are out that far, can't be undisputed. It's a real passion, I suppose.
Yeah, we're all sort of hoping and praying that Plymouth is not put back to a 12:30 kickoff in April.
Yeah. We're obsessed with 12:30 kickoffs this season.
Well, yeah, we are, aren't we? Because if that would be the case, I think we'd probably be leaving Norwich about 3:00 in the morning.
I think they did have one, didn't they? They had a 12:30, but wasn't it in Sunderland or Hull or something like that, where they had to, I saw on social media the chaps at Plymouth had to leave at like 2:30 in the morning to get to that for.
Yeah, Plymouth to Sunderland is absolutely, it's a horrendous journey. I take my hat off to them.
Yeah, for sure. So just the next question then, and I love this kind of question because I love talking about memorabilia. You've built an incredible collection of Norwich memorabilia over the years. Can you just just detail it a little bit for the listeners and tell us what your most prized item is?
Okay, well, we'll carry on with the 59 basically for me, because it meant so much to me, because my dad was, like all dads, Dad was my hero, and he introduced me to the club and the 59, and my collection, I've got a 59 massive collection of old Pinkins, ticket stubs, programmes, team sheets, books about the 59 Cup run. Got all the autographs from the 59 players. I've got a signed team photograph of the 59. But my most treasured possession for 59 is my dad's rosette.
Amazing.
My dad's rosette is basically a very basic rosette made of crepe paper in the centre, green crepe paper, with yellow ribbon around the outside, with just a basically piece of card in the middle with a Norwich stamped in the rubber. You can see it, rubber stamp with Norwich, and that's basically all it is. Pin in the back, safety pin in the back, and that's my number one.
Brilliant. So what was the rosette for?
Rosette. Well, in those days, we didn't have. There was not the club shirts, the sponsors. In those days, when you turned up at a football match, to show your colours, you probably had a scarf.
Right.
You might have had a woolen hat, but your rosette was your trade, and people used to be rosette sellers outside the ground.
Amazing. I did not know that. That's brilliant.
Yeah, rosettes were probably, I don't know, in those days, probably 2 shillings, 10 pence today. I've got a vast collection of rosettes through when we went to I think up to probably the middle 70s that we had rosettes. And they're made in various ways. You might get a rosette with the FA Cup on and your name across it. And then of course the other famous thing we had in those days was the football rattle.
Oh yes, yeah. I've seen them about. So it's just like it's a wooden rattle, right?
Wooden rattle, painted in yellow and green. I still got mine here.
That's so cool.
Yeah, and the thing was when your team came on the ball City was sung, and then bang, off goes with your rattle. Well, you wouldn't get anywhere near a football ground one of those today, you know that.
No, probably not. I think the closest thing we got were those clappers, Jez. Do you remember those?
Yeah, the clappers. Yeah.
Years ago, and I remember those quite a lot, because I think that was the time when we were not struggling as such, but wasn't it when we had Chris Hughton in charge, and they were trying to generate a bit of an atmosphere going into those last few games? I'm pretty sure it was around that time.
Yeah, well, let's say I've got, going back to my collection, I've got those, anything related to Norwich City. I've got a room full of Norwich City stuff. We've got programs going back from even the nest. I've got about 70 or 80 football shirts, autographs I think I've got probably, I don't know, hundreds of Norwich City autographs, pictures, etc., etc.
That's great. I mean, what's the most recent acquisition?
Recent acquisition, signed shirt this year.
Oh right, okay. Who signed it?
The whole team.
Oh, okay, nice. That's brilliant. Have you got it framed?
No, not to be fair, if I framed all my shirts, I think I'd have to buy a new house. and probably might be divorce papers as well.
Does your partner follow Norwich?
Yeah, my wife. So yeah, she's with me. She doesn't go away with me, but to away matches. But she's a home season ticket holder. So yeah, she loves the Norwich City and the family situation with our club.
Of course. And whereabouts do you sit in the ground?
We sit just above the away dugout in the main stand.
Oh, lovely. Yeah, that's really good. So sort of moving on then to our next question. So can you tell us a little bit more about your work with Diane, is it Blazier's surname, Fan Social Club, and what it means to the supporters?
Yeah, well, Diane, I've only been involved helping Diane a bit. Obviously, used to go to all her meetings and events, but it's only sort of the last year and a half that I've actually been helping Diane. And yeah, what that lady does to bring all the fans together. But yeah, she brings us closer together towards the club by organising events. No membership fee, just turn up on the day. And the other thing that she does is she raises a terrific amount of money for the Community Sports Foundation, the Norwich City charity.
Fantastic. So what events do you what sort of events does it put on the social club?
Well, yeah. about what they do to try to help.
They did the awareness video a few seasons ago, if you remember. So a fantastic initiative, I think, and one that's very important to, I suppose, football fans. That I mean, like I'm not going to go into too much detail, but you know, football has in the past been a bit of a rock for me to kind of take me away from hard times, you know, and I think that sort of initiative can't be, understated.
Yeah, I fully understand that. And we also had a guest speaker. We also had Emi Malcondas was there as a player, and he was he's a very brave young man, telling us all the stories and the pain and the grief that he suffered in his young life. And that was, it was a fantastic evening. And that's just one of the things that Diane does. As we also have a players forum. In May, June, we have a social gathering where we try like a fete where we get children involved in games. And then, we also have a bingo, and there's so many different things. She probably organises about 7 to 8 different things during the course of the season. And she raises a tremendous amount. I think, we're talking about, I think it's over 30,000 that she raised.
Oh, wow.
I'm not precise to that figure, but it's an amazing amount that she raises. And, she's a good one, I'll die.
Amazing. That's really good. And I mean, where can people, if people do want to get involved with that, Ronnie, where can they find the information to do that?
Yeah, they've only got to look on the Norwich Fan Social. Basically, there's a website, so it's updated regularly and gives you all the information of the events, what to do. It's just a situation of rock up, really, on the event, on the day. Sometimes there's an admission charge, which is probably only a minimum of £5, but then mostly no charge. But you might have to buy the old raffle tickets, but that's about all. And also Diane has got a fantastic team that works with her. Absolutely brilliant.
That's great to hear. So we've talked on another podcast about Duncan Forbes, and we have I've mentioned about the history of the club and how younger kind of listeners, it's really important to kind of like delve a little bit into the club's history and find out about former players and the decades of hardship that Norwich has sometimes been through as a journey as a club. So Duncan's club, can you tell us a little bit more about Duncan's club? How did it start and the impact that you've seen it have?
Yeah, well, I was involved and helped out with organised by Age UK. It's called Still on the Ball, which also is a football reminiscent group where they do a fantastic job. And Martin Eagle, myself, Teresa, and Sue Quantrill from that was asked by the Norwich City whether we would like to try and start a new initiative. A little bit different. They wanted to use basically Norwich City as the main stimuli to reminisce, to bring back memories to people living with dementia.
Fantastic.
And so along we go, and we also tried to, they're going to try to bring music into it, and we were also going to try to bring some dancing if they want to. Yeah. And I mean, we've also just recently, Sue, she started to do sit down aerobics, and that's something we're going to start anyway. Which is good, and they thoroughly enjoyed that. And we started off in September 2022, and with 3 people. So we thought, we're going to go here, and we're going to keep going at it, and we move on. And I mean, yesterday we had 2 sessions there, and in the second session there were 28 people.
Oh wow, brilliant.
28. When I say 28, also you've got to think about it's not just the person living with dementia, it's the carer. And it also gives the carer just a little bit of respite. We hold the sessions up at the Nest, and there is a dedicated cafe up there as well, so the carers can get off on their own and have a cup of coffee on their own and have a chat while we have some fun with our dementia friends.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I mean, I think with dementia, it isn't just, obviously it's the individual, but it's also, it affects the family and friends. I mean, sadly, my uncle passed from dementia a few years ago, but it's great to see that you're sort of helping people kind of reflect on memories from using Norwich is a great great stimulus. So I think it's something to be championed for sure.
There's over 15,000 people in Norfolk alone who are living with dementia, and that's without those who are undiagnosed. And my mum and dad had dementia, so this for me personally is my payback.
Yeah.
And it's, as you say, it's one thing I'll tell you about Duncan. I mean, obviously Duncan Forbes, as you know, he lived with dementia, and one of the things one of his favourite pieces of music was Sweet Caroline.
Oh, okay.
And he relentlessly played that during his time in a care home. And what we do every session on a Thursday, we have 2 sessions now on a Thursday, and at the start of every session, what we do? We sing Duncan's favourite song, Sweet Caroline.
Brilliant.
And that is something we play that loud, and that makes the hairs stand up on your back. I can tell you that.
Oh, definitely. I think again, it's such a valuable thing that you're doing there, Ronnie, and I suppose thank you, because it's something that's personally touched me as well. My granddad's had dementia, and it was something where I think something like this would have really benefited him. And I think, is it fair to say that people suffering this, that they're sort of, sometimes it's their short-term memory which is lost, but actually their long-term memory is something that they still have, and they're able to kind of portray, if that makes sense, and able to, something like this is such a platform where they can kind of relive those moments.
Yeah, it's the early memories that they can fondly remember. And we're going back to the 59 Cup run. I was talking to a gentleman yesterday who went to every game in the Cup run, and he could vividly tell me about the games and the teams, etc. But unfortunately, that memory is short-lived.
Yeah.
But if we can rekindle that, and it doesn't matter how we do it, we can. If that memory lasts, or smile lasts for a second, a minute, an hour, a day, it doesn't matter. We can still bring that smile there, and that's what we're all about. So can I just say that you to me, what I do is not what I do, is what we all do at Duncan's Club, because we've got a terrific team there. I mean, I've just mentioned Martin Eagle, I've mentioned Sue Quantrill, I've mentioned Teresa, Nicole. There's so many, Tim. There's so many people to mention, that we are just part of a fantastic team.
That's fantastic to hear. I mean, if people want to get involved with Duncan's Club, how would they go about it?
If there's a situation where a name is now getting spread around, and basically I think we've had a referral from a doctor's surgery recently as well. So the main thing is to contact the Community Sports Foundation. You can get all the details on the website. So email them or ring them, and they will give you more details.
That's great, thank you. I suppose you've sort of answered the next question anyway, but I'll ask you, what's been the most rewarding moment from running the reminiscence sessions for Norwich fans living with dementia?
Sorry, I do apologise. I do get emotional about Duncan's Club, because it means so much to me, and everybody who gets involved with it, because they are very, very special people. And when one of the carers, the wife, comes up to me and I said, "Oh, how are you? How's it been this week? How's he been this week?" And he said, "Oh, we've had a very, very bad week. I'll warn you, you might have a tough morning." So I said, "Don't worry, leave it with us. We'll see what we can do." So I won't mention any names, but I go into the room and I say, "Oh, how are you this morning?" "I'm all right, my boy. How are you?" "I'm okay, thank you." "How's your week been?" "Not very good." "Okay. Have you seen the 59 Cup team this week?" And off he goes. Poof. He can tell me the 59 Cup team. He can go off Nethercott, Thurlow, Ashman, Macrone, Butler, Crow, Crosson, Olcott, Bly, Hill, Brennan, Bomb. And that's what it is. And that's the power of Norwich City. You know, there's a lot of things that people will moan about the way we play on Saturday and what we do. But when you actually see this, how important Norwich City means is ingrained in that man's brain. And that's what it means to me as well.
Yeah.
I think that's a really important message, Ronnie, because I think it's something we try and speak quite a lot about on this podcast is the fact that, we're all victims sometimes of labelling the team or, some more than others, but, criticising the team. But it's not it is what happens on the pitch. Of course it is, because otherwise we wouldn't have those memories, right? But it's what happens in the community and what people like yourself do. And, credit to you. And you don't need me to tell you this, by the way, because, I'm not of any sort of great importance. But for me, it's really vitally important. And I think it's such a really good thing. And, you're keeping those memories alive. And it's such I don't think I can state it any better than that. I think it's really a really good thing that you're doing. So thank you.
Yeah, but we are all a family. I mean, the thing is, I'm no different to. I'm very fortunate. I can go to every game at the moment, home and away.
Of course.
But I'm no different. I'm a Norwich supporter, but I'm no different to the man who actually sits at home, listens to Norwich game on the radio, or the man who can't go to the game, who's got to work. We're all Norwich City supporters. We're all, whether we go to one game or we go to 50 games, we're all the same family.
Yeah, I mean, this is a good point you've made. It came up on a previous podcast as well. One fan isn't better than another. And I think, like, I'll just echo what Jez says. What you're doing is a really good platform for people to kind of reach out to. Sometimes I think, that it's challenging to kind of go and look for support or communities groups, because people might feel intimidated, or they might not know where to look. So I think it's great that you've come up with, you've created this group with, like you said, all of you, to kind of help people in this, in a stressful time.
But the whole thing about that is not just, it's what the Norwich City charity, the Community Sports Foundation, I mean, what they actually do, they use the power of sport to support and inspire the community.
Yeah.
I mean, the programs that they, support disadvantaged individuals and basically those with disabilities to keep them active and happy, and it improves their quality of life so much. And that's what we don't see from just turning up at a game of football.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really good point. It can be, like Jez says, at face value, you see your team play well or draw or lose, whatever. But it's the other side of things that maybe people don't have exposure to, that is kind of like that it forges that sense of belonging to each other and the club.
I'll give you an example of our family. A few months ago, out of the blue, a young lady from Norwich contacted me. I don't know how she got my number or name, but never mind, by the by. And sadly, her dad had passed, and she was trying to find a certain Norwich City flag that she could put on his coffin. And yeah, I had that in my collection. So I've asked her address and I sent it in the post. and she sent me a kind email a few weeks after the funeral to say thank you very much. Dad had his the flag on his coffin, and that's what we're all about, the Norwich City family.
That's fantastic. Really, really, really good value. So, I mean, we talked about Sweet Caroline. You were on Colin Murray's show talking about it. Could you tell us about how that came about and what was the experience like?
Well, yeah, it was not just the actual Sweet Caroline. I was asked put up by the club to talk about the origins of our great anthem on the Ball City.
Yes.
And Colin does a thing every Sunday morning called the football songbook.
Right.
And that's how I got brought into that. And the experience was one of an experience because we were on a Zoom call and I could see Pat Nevin, but I couldn't see Colin Murray.
Right.
And Pat Nevin could only connect. The whole time I was talking to Pat Nevin, he was on his hands and knees underneath the table, holding a connection into a wall socket.
Brilliant.
So what you hear on the radio came over very, very, and I said to my wife Sheila, I thought to myself, oh dear, what are we going to get on here? But they rang me back about 10 minutes afterwards, say, don't worry, our engineers have patched it all together and that'll be fine. And so, yeah, it was a great experience. It was talking about our club. And the other thing was I got Pat Nevin to apologise for knocking us out of the FA Cup. So it was good. He said he's going to send me a piece of memorabilia, but that's been lost in the post, I think.
I mean, let's talk about on the Ball City, a football chant. I mean, for the life of me, I can't think of any other song from any other club, maybe as potentially as old as On the Ball City and as unique. I mean, what is your opinion on it, Ronnie?
Well, yeah, of course it's unique. I mean, basically, we don't know the main fact. We think the anthem came from before Norwich City's time. It could have been before Norwich was formed in 1902. There was football in Norfolk, and there were various sides around the area, and we think that could have come from that. I mean, the Football League was formed in 1888, and Norwich was formed in 1902. So yeah, it could have come from a local football, but it's a. And the other thing was early in sort of middle 18s, there was a game called Foot-Ball,
Right,
which was a mixture of football and rugby.
Okay. Yeah, because the lyric, the scrimmage, and, you know, when I was always growing up, I associated the word scrimmage to rugby.
Yep.
So
Yep.
what you're kind of saying there makes sense.
It could be, and yeah, you know, the actual song, the way that the scrimmage is brought into it is the answer. I think you've done it.
Yeah. It's I mean, I've if anyone listeners at home, if you really want to check the full song out, you can check it out on YouTube and Spotify. But it's a proper song, isn't it, Ronnie? It's
I mean, the main verse is kick it off, throw it in, have a little scrimmage. Keep it low, a splendid rush, bravo, win or die. On the Ball City, never mind the danger, steady on, now's your chance. Hooray, we've scored a goal.
Yeah.
I think, sorry to interrupt, and apologies if this has been mentioned previously, but I think one of the lyrics really gets me, and it's probably a link back to what you're doing within the Duncan Club, actually. And the lyric reads, you'll think of the happy time, its memories fond recall, when in the bloom of your youthful prime, you've kept upon the ball.
Yeah.
And that's just before you go into the main chorus, if you like.
Yeah.
But I think, you know, that's a really powerful, and I'm actually getting quite emotional thinking about it, but that's quite a powerful message, isn't it? And even when you look at some of the other lyrics and stuff, and how it portrays that kind of you're thinking of when you were playing and when you were younger, but then actually, I just can't even put it into words really. But I just think it's such that for me that's such a powerful lyric.
Yeah, it's a powerful lyric, and I think the nice thing about it, you go to lots of grounds now and you hear the modern songs being played before the kick-off, but this one is there are it's going to definitely be the oldest. I don't care what anybody says. I mean, on about this one at Pompey being the Pompey Chimes, but that wasn't originally a football song. But this one is, it came from football teams, whether it came from Norwich, but it was brought Norwich. I think it was first played in the early 1905 in a game against Lowestoft. It was the first time it was actually sung.
I plugged this book, and I'm going to plug it again on this pod, but I've been reading The Place is Going Bananas. Have you looked at that, Ronnie?
No, not yet, no.
It's an official history of the club, only up until 2018, 2019. So it's kind of a bit out of date now, but it talks right up from the foundation of the club and where it was based on Newmarket Road, because I want to go and check where it was based on Newmarket Road until they moved to the Nest. But it talks about all of the managers and the history of the club. It's quite easy to kind of read. It's not like a massive war and peace. So again, its authors are Daniel Brigham and Zoe Whitford. So a great book to have on your shelf if you want to know a little bit more about the history of the club.
Yeah, well, it's easy to find that ground if you want to go. It's near a certain nursery on the Ring Road, and it's the town close goal, so the field is still there.
Oh, I know what you mean. Yes, I know exactly what you mean. I mean, I didn't know that until I read that book, and I just find that kind of thing just thoroughly interesting.
Yeah.
And to go back to On the Ball City, the song, we have that as our acronym for our club, OTBC. It's just fantastic. It's just a great piece of history, living history even.
Yeah, it's. I mean, have you actually listened to the old version that was played during look on YouTube and play the old version, because that even makes you. Yeah, that's fantastic. Really is good.
Yeah, 100%. Morgan, on to your next question, please, sir.
Okay, so you've followed Norwich home and away for years. Easy question for you, Ronnie. What's been your favourite away day?
Favourite away day? Cool, loads of, but I think you've got to say the 85 Milk Cup final. For me, winning at Wembley. We've had pain at Wembley, but it was for me the most major achievement. Apart from, I've been following Norwich for lots of years now, and I've seen 10 promotions and 10 relegations. 5 of those promotions and relegations have been in the last 20 years. But to go to Wembley to win a cup, had to be, and a deflected goal by Asa Hartford's shot in the 46th minute against Gordon Chisholm, deflected in the goal, and we went bananas.
Just before half time, was it, Ronnie?
Sorry?
When was the goal scored?
46 minutes.
Yeah. I remember it being, because obviously I've seen, I was -1 in 1985. So having been born in '86, but it, so I never saw it. My mum and dad went to the game with my brother, I think. I remember watching the rerun of it, and obviously, as you say, it was a sort of a cross from the byline, wasn't it? And the chap that you mentioned, Asa Hartford, was it?
Asa Hartford took the shot, and Gordon Chisholm, he actually deflected the ball in the net. Yeah,
so we sort of held on for the victory, which is very, very Norwich City like, isn't it? And there didn't seem to be a twist turn of tail. But I think the point I was going to get to was obviously we played in Sunderland, and ever since then we've played in in what's called the Friendly Cup.
Oh yeah.
Which I don't think is very well known. But Ronnie, perhaps you might know a little bit more about that and could tell us a little bit more.
Well, I think the Friendly Cup is always played before a Sunderland game. I don't know if it's played home and away, but it's always played probably at Carrow Park at Norwich with a group of supporters between both sides. And I think I'm not quite sure, but I think that's the detail. But that game, as friendly final, was because there was no segregation in those days. We were all tucked in with each other, no aggravation. Great day.
That's fantastic. Excellent. So perhaps moving on then. So question 9, if you could pick one Norwich match from the 50s, 60s and 70s to relive, which would it be and why?
Has to go back to my first game. Coming and being actually going down to Carrow Road with my dad to see. I think, my dad said, my mum said that I was too young to go to football, but Dad said, no, he's not, because he's going to see Stanley Matthews.
Yeah.
And, he was such a hero at the time. And I think it's something I'll always be proud that my dad took me and he started me off on a very, very enjoyable and long road following and living Norwich City.
Yeah. It kicked you off.
It kicked me off. The only time that I've been following through, the only time that I had to have time off from not going to football was when Mum and Dad were living with dementia, and that was not possible. But what we can do now via Duncan's Club, we can bring those memories back to, those people who are also unable to go to football matches at the moment and bring back their happy times as well.
Yeah. No, it's a great thing you're doing for sure. I think that probably leads us nicely into the last question then, Morgan.
Yeah, sure. So last question, Ronnie. Can you describe Norwich City in 3 words and why?
Right, easy. Fantastic family club.
Yeah, that's a really good one. You had that prepared, didn't you, Ronnie?
Well, they are to me. They mean, I think the people who know me well, the other thing I'm going to say too, we're also very, very fortunate in Norfolk to have a very good media setup. From the local press, we've got Connor Southall, we've got Paddy Devitt, we've got Sam Seaman. They do a fantastic job putting the reports over to us all. And then Radio Norfolk, you've got the great Rob Butler, Chris Gorham. And they actually, these people are actually, to people who can't go to games, like our friends living with dementia, these guys are heroes.
Yeah.
And you don't, you appreciate it, but a lot of people don't appreciate how good these guys are and what they do for Norwich City.
Ronnie, I'm coming at it from someone that lives outside the county here, right? And I had the, I'm not going to say misfortune because I don't mean that, but I had the experience of listening to BBC Three Counties Radio during the Watford Norwich game.
Yeah.
And the point I'm going to make is exactly to echo your thoughts about Rob, Chris, who both have very kindly given their time up to come onto this podcast. But they're such a credit to Norwich City and such a credit to themselves and the families, Radio Norfolk, and Radio Norfolk in itself is a credit to its community because BBC Three Counties Radio, and they probably do the same. And I'm going at it from a 90-minute football match between Watford and Norwich City, but I didn't get that sense of community from that conversation. It was very I just didn't get that, and whether that's because they've got so many clubs in their area that they can't give that community piece, but the point I'm going to get to is fair play to people like Rob and Chris and Connor. I know does a fantastic job of this as well in highlighting really important community pieces that we as a football club, and not just we as a football club, but we as a fan base do. And I think the main message coming out of today, and something that me and Morgan, I'm not. Hopefully Morgan, and I know Morgan agrees with this. Is we'll be shouting about this, and we'll want to come and meet you, Ronnie, at a session that you deliver, and perhaps maybe do like a video blog and really push that message out there to the wider community, and do anything and everything that we can to support you, and push Duncan's club forward as much as much as it already has been. But hopefully we can give you that little bit of a boost as well, and.
Yeah, thank you. We'd appreciate that, because people do not realise how important and how big Norwich City is in Norfolk. Because when Norwich City do well, we all do well.
Yeah, agreed.
We all do well. Everybody it's such a going. I mean, we got even a lady who lives 5 doors away from me. She doesn't know much about football, but every Saturday, or when the games are on, she always listens to Chris Scorum and Rob Butler, and she loves listening to them, and she gets so excited because they actually tell her the story, they actually paint the picture, and they do everything for her to entertain her, and she's not a football fan.
No.
Wow. Yeah.
That just goes to show, doesn't it?
Yeah, credit to the community. But yeah, it'll be it'll be a real pleasure to come out and meet you, Ronnie, if you'll have us, obviously.
Yeah, well, as I say, we'll have to talk to the CSF, to the Community Sports Foundation. I'm sure we can make an arrangement. Yeah. And as I say, I'm just a volunteer. I don't have the final say, but I'm just a part, as I keep saying, a part of a small cog in a big wheel. The main thing is to keep it going and to promote Norwich City to those who are less fortunate than we are.
Yeah, fantastic. Can I ask the question, Jez? Is it time?
I think it's time. Yeah, and as long as Ronnie doesn't mind us.
Well, no, carry on.
Yeah, we do what's called Morgan's random question of the week, Ronnie. So
I'm happy.
Without further ado, I'll hand you over to Morgan.
So it's the random question of the week. Ronnie, you've talked a lot about the 1959 Cup run and earlier earlier players. What player from the 1993-94 inaugural Premier League team would you like to have a beer with, sit down and have a beer with, and why?
1993 team. Who can I think of? 1993. Must be Mr. Goss.
Yeah, I think we talked about that the other day, didn't we, Morgan? Funnily enough, speaking to Jeremy Goss about some of his memories, and particularly some of the goals that he scored, Ronnie, were exceptional, weren't they?
Well, I can tell you a little bit about it. I know that because he is a fantastic guy. I'll be fair to you. He came to Duncan's club last week.
Brilliant.
And he is such a great storyteller, and I could sit and listen to him all night because he is just such a lovely man, and he tells a good story. And obviously he'll always be remembered for that fantastic goal, but also scoring the last goal at the Cop as long as many other great volleys that he scored.
Yeah, that's a pub quiz question if ever I had one, isn't it?
It is.
Score in front of the Cop at Liverpool. Yeah.
Yep.
I'm going to steal that one, Jez.
Yes. Yeah. It's a good one to steal. Ronnie, thank you so much for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure to get to know a little bit more about you. And as I said, if we are welcome and the invite's there, we would certainly love to come and meet you in person.
Well, as I say, I go to all the away games and home games. So if you want to meet up personally, just give us a message, and I'd love to meet you both. And thank you very, very much for giving me the opportunity to talk about the club that is very special to me and my family, and the club that I love to bits.
That's so great. But thanks also for taking the time and sort of going through a little bit of the history of the club, because again, I think that's super important to keep that alive for younger fans to understand where the club has come from.
Okay, well done.
Thank you, gents. Just for everyone else listening, you can follow the show on Facebook, Instagram and X, and we are now available to at least listen to the show on YouTube. Thanks once again. I've been Jez Davies.
I've been Morgan Hewitt.
Thanks everyone, and goodbye. Sorry, Ronnie, I interrupted you there. Carry on.
And I'm Ronnie Moulton. Goodbye.
Yes. Do you know what? Before we finish, we always line that up, and the guest just goes. They just stay very serious. But yeah.
That's it for this episode of Beyond the Barclay. Thanks so much for listening. Your support means the world to us. Don't forget to follow or subscribe on your favorite podcast platform and leave a review if you enjoy the show. You can also catch all our episodes on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. And if you've got any questions, stories, or topics you'd like me to cover, get in touch. I'd love to hear from you. Until next time, on the Ball City.